Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Moody Gooners podcast. Today, in this episode, we're going to be going over the weekend's game where Arsenal ran out 4-0 winners, very comfortable winners against Bournemouth. Today, as you can see, I'm flying solo. My esteemed colleague Paul is a little bit under the weather. So before we get into the game, a little bit of housekeeping, a little bit about us. So we're an Arsenal podcast with a bit of a difference, and that difference being that we like to sort of combine our passion for all things Arsenal, and then sort of mix in a little bit of raising awareness for mental health as well, which we like to keep at the top of the agenda. At the end of every week, we make something called our Bould prediction, play on words for Steve Bould there. And then if those predictions, when they invariably are wrong, then we donate money to a charity of our choice, and that charity is Mind. So that's a little bit about us, and we'd really appreciate your support in growing the channel. And if you do like it, then please, click the like, hit subscribe, and get some comments in. With that out of the way, let's jump into the game. So obviously Arsenal midweek, the podcast that Paul did as well, where we beat Brentford away, coming off the back of that win, going into this game against Bournemouth. I know we've sort of played our sort of, if you like, second string, I guess, against Brentford. I was expecting a few of those players to be sort of in the lineup for the Bournemouth game, but that wasn't to be the case. Mikel Arteta, he was extremely vague in his pre-match press conferences, and when the lineups came out, I was just like, really? I thought all these players were really injured. It was unbelievable. So there was talk that Saliba had a knock, Rice had the problem with his back as well. Saka as well, he'd taken a knock in the Spurs game. And I think with Saka, he's played so much football over the last couple of years that it's remarkable that he's still sort of standing. But you can start to see that there are cracks appearing in his fitness, because the guy is a machine and he's able to sort of just keep going. But for whatever reason, Mikel thought that, playing a full strength team and gambling a little bit on players' fitnesses was worth the risk. And so it was pretty much you'd say with the exception of maybe Martinelli, it was like a full strength team, which was very surprising, given what the sort of what Arteta had been saying beforehand. Sort of thoughts before the game, I was confident but a little bit nervous, I must admit. Obviously the game had been billed as a sort of a rivalry between Arteta and his good friend Iraola, both from the sort of Basque country. So it was, Bournemouth, I can kind of understand, where they're going and the trajectory that they're trying to do. They're trying to change the way that they play. They're winless all season so far. So it was interesting to sort of see how that would play out. And obviously we know the result now, but Arsenal didn't really need to get out the third gear by the looks of things for this game. So I was expecting a win, but a little bit nervous. Obviously we got the win against Brentford, but then the performance in the league against Spurs last weekend, it left me scratching my head a bit, and I was a bit concerned about where we were going to go and how we were going to approach this game, because this could have been a bit of a banana skin for us. It was good to see Trossard back as well on the bench. I would have thought, if he was on the... Well, this is the thing. I just don't understand why Arteta he's constantly playing Saka, and at some point something's going to go wrong, and it's just concerning. I just think that if you had Trossard on the bench, why not just bring him in, or Nelson? Even Nelson had a great game against Brentford, so I just don't understand why he's persisting with this, because obviously Saka is carrying a couple of knocks, it seems, from this. So, very much surprised with the lineup. As the game sort of kicked off, there isn't really... the game was so dominated and controlled by us. Arsenal really didn't have to get out of third gear. it didn't take us long to sort of get into our stride. Completely controlled, looked really assured of ourselves in possession, and just sort of blew Bournemouth away. It was almost too simple, and I think I messaged Paul a little bit during the game, and it was Paul was thinking, oh, it's a bit boring, isn't it, though? But it was just so efficient the way that we were playing, I think, because the opposition, they were trying to play football, but because of that, it sort of opened themselves up, and Arsenal were able to play the sort of quick, swift passing game. And Martin Odegaard and Bukayo Saka, those two guys, they were really, really on form today in that game. So really, really encouraging performance there from those two, pulling the strings again, standout performers. I thought Eddie Nketiah had one of his strongest games. Although he didn't get on the score sheet again, I think he was a willing runner, and he really sort of put a shift in, and I could see the style of play. He was almost, Paul and I have spoken about this on the podcast before, where we think that Gabriel Jesus in that sort of number 9 role, it complements the attacking, quartet, and it's a very fluid sort of attacking 4 that we have. But then when Eddie Nketiah comes into it, it's very one-dimensional, and we're almost having to play to his strengths, and that takes away from Arsenal's game. But what I noticed in the game with Bournemouth is that Eddie Nketiah was really he was trying to make a bit more of an impact from coming in from wide, and the runs he was making, he was being a bit more intelligent, I think, off the ball. And that is something perhaps they've been working on in training, because it was very encouraging to see that aspect, that he was able to sort of adapt his game a little bit, to sort of bring himself into it. So, I mean, it didn't take us long to get into the stride, as I say. And, with 17 minutes on the clock, we've got our first goal from Bukayo Saka. Who else? The amount of goals he's been involved with already so far this season, he is the standout performer for us. So a delicious little sumptuous clipped ball to the back post from Odegaard, and Gabriel Jesus somehow manages to sort of from a very odd acute angle manages to head it against the post, and from the resulting rebound, Saka's there to nod the ball in, and to give us a fully, an early and fully deserved lead. And really that set the tone for the entire game. Bournemouth had no answer to Arsenal's possession-based, slick passing, 1-2, the quick movement. It was we just steamrolled them, basically. And if anything, it's probably what we really needed. The performance against Tottenham, as I say earlier, it was really lackluster, and I just thought that, oh, come on, this is Tottenham, we can do much better than this. And obviously we had the midweek game with Brentford, but obviously that was a bit more of a second string team. So a result like this and a performance like this, I think, was needed, and it just goes to show that team of last season that were just scoring for fun is still there. And obviously we've got a big week of football coming up now. We've got Lens tomorrow, and then we've got the big one on Sunday, where it's City at home. So, it was really encouraging to see that we're able to sort of put an opposition team to the sword. So a fantastic sort of first goal to sort of get us off the mark. I mean, the rest of the half, it played out in much the same way, possession based. We were just all over them and hammering Bournemouth. And then, just close to the to the end of the first half, we got that penalty on 44 minutes. Nketiah made that lovely little run. He managed to nick the ball just in front of Max Aarons, and he was brought down, and it's a clear pen. And it was wonderful little build-up play, I think, on the edge of the box. I think it was Odegaard that played him in. So that was great play from Nketiah to sort of, you could see he was almost playing for that penalty. And very clever little toe poke the ball a little bit further away, so he drew the foul a little bit more. And up steps Odegaard, which was a little bit surprising because obviously we've had Saka as the sort of mainstay for our penalties most of the season. Odegaard had that one against Palace, but so Odegaard stepped up obviously, and he just nice and simple, calm, little stuttered run up to begin with, and just made the keeper go the wrong way, and very confidently stroked the ball into the back of the net. 2-0, and then it's half time. And to be quite honest with you, at that point the game was pretty much done and dusted. I couldn't see Bournemouth coming back from that point then onwards. So really, really encouraging first half of football from Arsenal. Great attacking display. And I mean, Bournemouth were the architects of their own downfall, really. The way that they sort of opened themselves up and the rash challenges, and it just wasn't very controlled from them, and it played very much into our hands, really. So second half, again, sort of much the same as the first half. As the first half ended, we got another penalty on 53 minutes. This time, I mean, there's no excuse. I think it was Christie that sort of steamrolled it into Martin Odegaard, and I don't understand why you would make a challenge like that, because it's just, you're asking for trouble, and there was no way that he was going to get the ball. It was lovely as sort of build-up play. I think it was Nketiah that played the ball back into Odegaard, and Odegaard sort of rolled it over the top of his foot as if he was about to shoot, and then Christie comes clattering into the side of him and takes him out for one of the most obvious penalties I've seen in a long time. The interesting thing about this is you're thinking, maybe Odegaard or Saka would step up, but no. It seems that the Arsenal boys have grown tired of Havertz fluffing his lines, and they've given him the opportunity to break his duck in this game. And I mean, credit where it's due. Havertz, stepped up and put the ball in the back of the net, which is exactly what he's going to be doing. And it was really nice to see, because I think almost all of the Arsenal players then came over to Kai, and they were tapping him on the back. You could see it was a big relief and a big release, I think, for Kai to sort of get that off his back. So yeah, really nice to see that happen. It's really encouraging. One thing I'd like to say about this is that I think I really like the idea of the players sort of banding together and showing support like this. I mean, some people will turn around and say, well, no, you should always have one penalty taker, and if it's a striker or something, they would never give up that that privilege to somebody else, just to sort of give them the chance to break their duck. But yeah, I like the sort of the camaraderie that the players have with each other. It's really nice to see that. It makes you feel that we obviously know that the players are it's a very tight-knit group, and they're sort of supportive of each other. I really liked it. I mean, I'm sure there are people out there that will say, no, this is ridiculous. No room for that sort of stuff in football. You have to get your best penalty taker on the ball and put it back in the net. But I think there's enough quality, and Havertz has taken penalties before. So yeah, it was really nice to see. I mean, that was his one thing as well, is that was his first I think first club goal in like 20 appearances, and obviously that's stretching back to his days at Chelsea. So not before long that he needed to put that ball in the back of the net. So yeah, so pleased that that's happened, because he has had a few chances, and I've been a little bit critical of him here on the channel. So it was really nice to see that he got that in the back of the net. So after that, we had quite a few different subs, things coming on after that. We had Tomiyasu and Nelson coming on for Zinchenko and Eddie, and around about the 70th minute mark. It was nice to see Nelson get some minutes. I really thought that Nelson was going to actually start this game. Given his performance in midweek, I thought he did really well against Brentford and took his opportunity really well there. So I was kind of expecting him, but again, he's looking sharp. And I mean, I really would have thought, Arteta would have rested Saka, given that he'd had that knock against, against Tottenham, and he'd rested him against Brentford. And I thought, well, we could probably get by without him in the Bournemouth game, and we probably could have done, in hindsight. But there we go. Nelson comes on the 70th minute. It comes on for Eddie, and Zinchenko goes off as well for Tomiyasu. So we switched to that sort of, if you like, 4 centre-back sort of way of playing. We're 3-0 up at that point. The game's done and dusted. Vieira then comes on for Saka as well. Vieira, I was expecting him to play a more, prominent role against Brentford, but I think he had a bit of a knock as well. So good to see him get a few minutes as well. And I think at that point, Saka was limping as well in the game. So going back to what I'm saying at the beginning of the podcast, Arteta's playing a bit of roulette here with Saka and his fitness, and he really needs to be careful because, the game against Lyon tomorrow, is Saka going to play? I mean, is it worth it's Champions League. He kind of has to, I know it's an away game, and, they always say in the Champions League that you've got to win your home games first and foremost, but we're going to need to pick up a win or something. And, if you look at it on paper, Lyon away would be the game that you'd think that Arsenal would have more of a chance of winning rather than away at PSV or away at Sevilla. I mean, I remember last year we lost away at PSV. So it's not going to be easy. So, Arteta just needs to manage, I think, the players a little bit better with their fitness. There isn't going to be any harm with starting Nelson. He's going to be well up for it. So I would have thought, he would have started. But nevertheless, Saka's taken a bit of another kick, I think, in this game. And it'll be interesting to see if he is in the lineup for the Lens game. Smith Rowe and Jorginho, they got some minutes as well towards the end of the game. Coming on for Kai and Declan as well. So it was nice to see them get some time. Smith Rowe as well, I thought he had a really good game against Brentford. So I was expecting him to have more of a prominent role in this game as well. But, bless him, there was that sort of missed chance from Smith Rowe as well, sort of towards the end of the game, where Jesus sort of nipped the ball off the Bournemouth defender at the sort of half-time. And then he was sort of, it was laughable almost because he was manhandled and rugby tackled by Senesi. So, but the ball broke free and then it went through to Smith Rowe, and he was clean through, and he should have scored, to be perfectly honest with you, but it wasn't to be. I think it was just sort of tipped around the post, and it was actually quite sad because at the end of the game as well, you could see that. I mean, there's been some sort of footage going around on social media of Emil Smith Rowe being consoled by I think it's Stuyvenberg and Zinchenko at the end there. So obviously he's trying really hard, Smith Rowe, to sort of force his way, and in the press conferences and the newspaper articles, he's very bullish and sort of saying that he wants to sort of take his chance and just go for it. And you can see it really matters to him, and he really sort of wants to be part of this and have more of an impact and play a more prominent role. But something like that has really affected him. But he just needs to keep working, keep at it, and I think hopefully he'll get his time, because I know all Arsenal fans are huge fans of Smith Rowe. We want to see him get more minutes in game time. So we just got to keep supporting him, keep with him, and I'm sure he'll come good, because the last thing we want is for him to leave the club, because he's one of our own. He's been brought through. There's definitely quality there. You could see in the midweek game against Brentford, for me, he had a lot more of a positive impact than Havertz did in that game. I think he had a really good game, and I just want him to get the minutes and be shown a bit more of the trust from Arteta. I'm not sure I buy into this thing of his fitness isn't quite up to level. I mean, the only way he gets his fitness is if Arteta starts to play him in the games more. He's there, he's contributing in training every day, much like the other players. But Arteta's got it that he's almost fixed with his starting 11, and that sort of core group of players, that the sort of fringe players, they don't really get that many minutes unless it's like a Carabao Cup game. So I really hope that Arteta starts to sort of reintroduce some players, as the games start coming thick and fast now. I think we're going to be playing like once every 3 days or so. So we're going to have to start using the squad more, and he's going to have to start trusting his players. So yeah, I mean, after that we had the Ben White goal as well, on 93 minutes. I mean, the icing on the cake, really lovely headed finish, a ball in from Odegaard from a free kick. So yeah, it was just a really accomplished, polished performance, I feel, by Arsenal. They, as I say, they didn't have to get out of third gear, and I mean, you can only beat what's in front of you. So credit to Arsenal for sort of putting that game to bed, because that could have been a bit of a banana skin game for us. So I'm really pleased that we've managed to sort of put that one away. As you'd expect from the game, we dominated possession. It was almost 60%. 8 shots on target from 15. And this will tell you everything you need to know about the game. Bournemouth had 1 shot on target, so really easy game for Arsenal. They controlled it. Bournemouth, they were their own worst enemy and just gave us the game on the platter, basically. Far too much quality for them to handle. So the other big talking point from the weekend, which isn't VAR, I'm not going to go into that about the Liverpool Spurs game, but Man City, they've lost. They've surprisingly gone to Wolves. They've lost at Molineux 2-1. The big man Erling Haaland didn't get on the score sheet, and they've lost, and it's unbelievable. 2 games on the bounce. So City are starting to show a little bit of a softer side to themselves. Nobody would have had them losing against Wolves, but it's happened, and as a result of the way that the fixtures and the results have gone over the weekend, it's now meant that Arsenal are only a point behind City. So as much as we've not really felt that we've been playing to the level that we were last season, and we've been a little bit stop-start with some of our performances, we've managed to get the results, the majority of the results on the board, bar the sort of Fulham game and the Spurs game. We've managed to find ourselves in a position where we are only a point behind Man City going into the big one on Sunday, where we are going to be hosting City. So really encouraging performance. And I saw today, I watched one of the training videos that the club released, and I could see all the guys there training. So you've got Declan Rice training as normal, Saka's there training as normal, Saliba's there training, Trossard's back there. Even Thomas Partey was back in training today. So it'll be really interesting to see now how they manage the team, how Arteta manages the team and what he puts out for the sort of Lens game. So I'm really hoping he doesn't go completely gun-ho and just plays the same sort of starting 11 that he had against Bournemouth. I think he needs to manage some players. I wouldn't mind if he sort of left Saka out of the starting lineup and brought Nelson in or gave Trossard some game time. I just think that we need to sort of be careful with Saka, because I do think he's reaching that sort of tipping point where he could get a really bad hamstring injury or something. I just daren't think about it, but it's not beyond the realms of possibility. So I do think we have to be a bit careful there with that. But yeah, it was really nice to see the sort of training, the video, and you can see how tight knit the group is. It's really good. It's really lovely to see that sort of stuff. So yeah, looking ahead to Lens, I think the Lens game is going to present a challenge for us in so much as sort of juggling the squad and squad management. I do think that we should be putting them away. And if we do put them away, it's going to put us in a good place to sort of qualify from the group, I think, because I do think we're going to have too much for them in the reverse game. And I do think we're going to have too much for Sevilla. And at that point, you're looking at 12 points. And I do think we're going to get through the group as winners. So it's going to be interesting to see who sort of starts tomorrow. I do think that I'm expecting us to win tomorrow. So let's dive into some of the the bold predictions. So what have we got here? So, oh, wow, look at that. I've had another barnstorming week. This 2 weeks in a row I've got it right. So my bold prediction from for the Bournemouth game was an Arsenal win with a goal involvement from Martin Odegaard. And that's obviously happened. Martin had one of his magical games. He seemed to be everywhere. He seemed to be involved in everything. He seemed to be the sort of the leader, the magician that he is. He was everywhere. Fabulous game from him. So I've pulled off a right result there. My colleague Paul, though, he's had another bit of a shocker. He's only had one right prediction this season so far. So he had that Ramsdale was going to start. I think this is off the back of the Brentford game. So, yeah, a loss there for Paul. And then looking ahead at the Lens game, I'm going to go with an Arsenal. Do you know what? I'm going to go exactly as I did against Bournemouth. I'm going to go for an Arsenal win with a goal involvement from Odegaard. I'm going to double up on what I did last week. And what's Paul gone for? Paul has gone for Raya to start with a clean sheet. So interesting call there from Paul. So yeah, we'll have to see how that pans out. Yeah, so yeah, I think that's just about it. That wraps everything up for this week. It's a bit of a short and sweet one this week because I'm sort of flying solo. But yeah, please get your likes and subscribes and comments. You know, we'd love to sort of get some comments back to you guys out there in the Arsenal world. So yeah, please, you know, hit us up, and yeah, we'll get back to you. We'll have another episode after the Lens game. So yeah, take care, everybody, and we'll speak to you soon. See ya.